Hi, I'm Ann Rieselbach, the Architectural League's Program Director. Welcome to the second set of lectures by winners of the 2024 Architectural League Prize for Young Architects and Designers. Winners are selected each year through a juried portfolio competition, which is shaped by an annual theme. Work submitted can range widely, including built, unbuilt, or speculative projects, as well as installations and events centered on community engagement. Entrance must be 10 years or less out of an undergraduate or master's program, so young references career years rather than age. On behalf of the League, I'd like to thank the League Prize Committee, Sarah Aziz, Rodrigo Escanon-Cesarman, and Maggie Tsang, all recent League Prize winners, for conceiving of this year's competition theme, Dirty, and for their selection of additional jury members, Julie Bargman, Ursula Crippa, Anne Louis, and Ben Nicholson, who, along with the committee, individually evaluated all of the entries and then collectively participated in a thoughtful jury session to select 6 winners. This is the second pair of lectures presented in this by the 6 2024 League Prize winners. We hope that you can join us again next week on June 27th to hear presentations by 2 collaborative groups, Office Party and Partners of Place, which will be introduced and moderated by League Prize Committee member Sarah Aziz. We also hope that you will visit each of the winners' online installations on the League's website, part of what will be an extensive collection of content available on archleague.org, including firm profiles as well as interviews and lecture videos. You can click on the link in the chat, which I think is showing up right around now, to view all of this content, and also watch for upcoming League program Instagram takeovers by the winners. All of the online material was created with the valuable support of League staff members Zoe Fruchter, Ann Carlisle, and Sasha Portis. Britt Cobb and Michael Beirut of Pentagram once again designed this program's memorable competition graphics, including the recently released downloadable exhibit poster, which has an embedded QR code that brings viewers directly to the installation on the League's website. We ask that you please print out and post a copy to help get the word out. The entire program, from the competition to the installation, lectures, and related material, is made possible through corporate sponsorship provided by Judlow, Tischler & Son, and Delta Millworks. League programs are made possible in part by public funds from the New York City Department of Cultural Affairs in partnership with the City Council. Support is also provided by the Next Generation Fund, an alumni fund of the Architectural League's Emerging Voices and League Prize programs, as well as the J. Clausen Mills Fund of the Architectural League, and through the support of the League's members and friends. Please visit the League's website and sign up for our weekly newsletter to learn more, including about upcoming events and extensive collection of online resources, such as videos and essays documenting past programs and special projects. And please, of course, consider joining the League. League Prize Committee member Maggie Tsang will introduce today's speakers. Maggie is a founding partner of Dept, a Houston-based landscape architecture and urban design firm. Her research and practice focuses on the impacts of climate adaptation and flood hazard mitigation on urban infrastructure and planning. The firm's work has been exhibited and received recognition, including Fast Company's Best of Urban Design Awards and the Florida Gold Coast APA Award for Innovative Design for their Good Neighbors Stormwater Park in North Miami. Current projects include a 5-acre stormwater park on the Buffalo Bayou in Houston and a residential complex in Miami, and a 50-acre ecological restoration project along the Indian River Lagoon on Florida's Atlantic coast. Maggie holds an MArch from the Yale School of Architecture, a master's degree in design studies and urbanism, landscape, and ecology from Harvard University's Graduate School of Design, and a BA in architecture from Yale College. She's an assistant professor at Rice University. After the winners' presentations, Maggie will join them in conversation and forward questions from the audience, which you should please pose in the Q&A session. Thanks.
Great. Hi, everybody. My name is Maggie Tsang, and I'm very happy to be introducing our guest speakers today and moderating the discussion. First, I just wanted to say congratulations to all of this year's League Prize winners, and also a special thank you to Anne and Zoe for putting this program together so seamlessly. Year after year, you create this amazing platform for young designers, along with the rest of the staff at the League, so we just wanted to say thank you. As Anne mentioned, I am founding principal at Dept, a landscape architecture and urban design studio based in Houston, and I'm also an assistant professor at the Rice School of Architecture. This League Prize season, it was a real delight to work with my colleagues Sarah Aziz and Rodrigo Escandon Cesarman to develop this year's theme, Dirty. The topic emerged over a series of conversations between the three of us. I think it was a couple of different Zoom sessions where we were discussing issues like cosplay, ugliness, soil, dirt, literal mud. And that's how we really landed on this theme of dirty and the word dirty, because we agreed that it was an open invitation to explore multiple different entry points. For us, dirty conjured the idea of materiality and physical dirt or soil, but it also suggested a moral position. Dirty is bad, dirty is unclean, and most interestingly, and perhaps more elusively, dirty also opened up the possibility of approaching design methodologies and architecture practice without the sheen or facade of respectability, propriety, or professionalism. So this year's theme asked designers to show us their dirt, in a way to show us something that maybe wasn't used to being looked at. So together with our jury members, which included Julie Bargman, Ursula Crippa, and Louis and Ben Nicholson, we are especially excited about this pair of winners presenting today for their thoughtful perspectives on the theme. Our first presentation will be by Erik Carranza. Erik founded Anonima in 2007. Based in Mexico City and Oaxaca City, this multidisciplinary studio engages in both design and research projects related to urban spatial practices, ranging across scales from street-level interventions to institutional build work to advocacy campaigns. In addition to his practice, Erik Carranza is a faculty member at Universidad La Salle and Centro, and he was most recently a member of the Mexican National System of Art Creators for the 2020 to 2023 cycle with the theme City, Body, and Urban Sport. In Anonima's work, there is an impressive range of projects from furniture and installation to large-scale parks and infrastructure. Though the architectural work is diverse in scale, aesthetic quality, and materiality, the jury remarked on Anonima's consistently energetic and grounded approach to design. Erik specifically addressed the theme of dirty as a state of murkiness or confusion. He implies that architecture is inherently embedded within messy, muddy, or even corrupt systems, and that Anonima's design practice embraces the challenges and opportunities of negotiating such social and political contexts. From their skate park in Mexico City to their Alejandro Garcia High School in it is evident that Anonima is committed to developing architecture's civic responsibility in a way that is simultaneously playful, ambitious, and without pretense. Our second speaker will be Leah Wulfman. Traversing physical and digital realms, Leah Wulfman's practice develops non-normative uses and misuses of spatial technologies. Currently located in Salt Lake City, Leah adapts the systems and logics of architecture and game forms for purposes of embodied physicality, play, and performance. Their work integrates digital tools and material stuff, rehearsing or projecting a mixed reality and design methodology that undercuts binary assumptions of gender, physicality, and technology. Leah was the 2021 to 2023 Walter B. Sanders Fellow at Taubman College for Architecture and Urban Planning at the University of Michigan, and is currently a visiting assistant professor at the University of Utah's College of Architecture and Planning and visiting assistant professor in the Division of Multidisciplinary Design. Leah's recent project called Free Dirt was really what caught the jury's attention. The installation incorporated both virtual reality and physical dirt and plants to create an interactive online game and garden. In viewing the project, as well as the rest of Leah's portfolio, the jury felt strongly that Leah's design methodology smartly exposed the tension between the virtual and the material. Specifically, we found that Leah's approach decentered single-person perspectives so frequently found in the world of augmented and virtual reality, and instead allowed for multiple contradictory perspectives to exist simultaneously. Leah's own take on the League Prize theme interprets dirt as a productive form of contamination that straddles both the physical and virtual worlds. From the literally contaminated dirt they acquired from Craigslist Free to the contamination of normative architectural conventions and standards they create through their non-binary tech and playful uses of technology. Throughout both Leah and Erik's work, what I really admire is this aspect of serious playfulness with which they approach their subject matter. Across mediums, through different modes of architectural representation, material assembly, and performance. There's a lack of preciousness, as well as a fundamental willingness, I think, to engage in the unexpected, the unforeseen, and the contradictory in order to undermine architectural convention in a way that feels both personal and political. I'm really looking forward to these presentations today, and I hope that you will join us for the Q&A afterwards. Please think of questions as these presentations progress. So with that, thanks again for everything, and I'll let Erik kick it off.
Okay, first of all, thank you, Anne, for the introduction, and thank you, Maggie Tsang from Dept, from department for the presentation. And then thank you to all the Architectural League for all these amazing weeks since the announcement of the prize. Thank you for the support for the exhibition online. Thank you for being here right now with this presentation. And it's been amazing days, and also it's been amazing to know different practices and different sophists like Lola Benalon from Natural Material Labs and all the cooking process in the 3D print, Strat Kaufman with the body machinery, Partners of Place, Office Party, and also Leah Wulfman with the Young Architects Project, which right now I'm a fan of the project. So I want to start presenting this image. This is an old painting by an author. This painting doesn't longer exist. The author destroyed the paint after the competition. The author is José Chávez Morado, and he's painting the city, no, La Ciudad. In Spanish, we have the difference between the articles when we say el for male things and la for the female things. I think in English there is a generalized from the word the, no? And this is one of the main purpose of the presentation of this picture, but because José Chávez Morado is painting La Ciudad, no, the city, and she's trying to represent the city as a female body. She's doing this transformation of the city between the natural environment and the urban context. There is a transformation. We can see the city as a woman. Maybe she's sleeping, maybe she's dreaming, or maybe she's ashamed of what she's becoming. There is a lot of confusion between this painting because there is a huge transformation between the natural environment to the urban context. There is a lot of things going on around. There is a violation. There is a process of changing of the body. And one of the things that I want you to notice is the background, because there is a specific natural environment that we are seeing in the background. You can look the hair of the city, no? It's transforming into a couple of mountains. So these couple of mountains are what we see here when I wake up in my bedroom, when I go up to my workspace. This is what we see in the office, in the terrace. These are the couple of mountains, and this is the difference between she and he. No, what you're seeing is right in the right side is the Popocatépetl. It's the smoking mountain. It's representing a male person. And in the left side, you can see the white and sleepy woman, the Iztaccíhuatl. And the purpose of presenting this kind of image is just to introduce you to the difference between the language and the difference between how we pronounce the things in architecture. That is one of the major opportunities that I have between speak in this in Spanish and in English, and also in other language like Nahuatl. And there is the condition between the city, La Ciudad, el volcán, la montaña, no? The volcano, the mountain, Iztaccíhuatl, Popocatépetl, because between of that mountains, there is the city and there is the place where we want to work and the place where we live in. These are some of the little representations, about this national competition that was called Mexico City as seen by its painters. The member juries are looking at the female body, the city and la ciudad, and we, the citizens, are represented by the dog and the cat in the window ceiling that are trying to understand what is happening with this competition. The winner of this competition is another kind of painting that I don't want to talk about because there is a lot of opportunities to share about what is going on between that. But this is the Mexico City. For me, Mexico City, it's a place, it's like the shape in the heart because it's always beating, going up, going down. And this a bipolar relationship between the city and the work that I do in it, how I live it, how I suffer it. This is a bipolar relationship between love and hate. When right now I'm hating the city because it's too noisy, there is too pollution. There is no water in the city right now. There is some conflicts about corruption, political moments. So I hate the city, but I can live it. And when I love it, there is no better place to be in. The place where we do our work, this is the office. I just wanna mention the difference between how we consider our work because we don't consider the space as an office. It's more like a platform where we take some of the decisions. And this is on the 6th level, is a private home, and in the 7th level is the platform, the space where we work. And one of the main objects of do that is to take the public space, what happened in the streets, to that level and start questioning things about going on in the street. How can we do a little interventions between a graffiti project or a cultural project where we invite some musicians to play in the terrace. It's like a space of laboratory because we can do some gardening, we can make some adjustments with the plants. We try to block what we don't want to see. We try to frame what we want to see. Of course, we try to always look at the mountains, the volcanoes, the Popocatépetl and Iztaccíhuatl. And this is a building that I developed for a real estate company 15 years ago. And you can see the reference, and that's important for me, all kind of reference between architecture and artistic reference. This is a concrete box with some balconies that try to share some of the process of the student residents in the Bauhaus. But when I look at it every day, I try to understand this cultural reference that took me to this place, took me to this painting of Jorge González Camarena that is called The Swimmers. That is a painting from 1935 that it's a parallel with the work that we do in the platform. We took the risk, we took some project scales, we jump into the void. Sometimes there is no water to catch us. Sometimes there is concrete. But this is an important painting for us because there is some treatment about the body, the transformation between the rural body of the female and trying to enter to an urban context, and the platforms it's provides us to taste some difference between design in architecture, in urban design, industrial design, graphic design. So every time we took a project, we decide to take a jump into the void, something like Yves Kleins do in 1960. So nowadays, the jumps that we take is more like the right image, Polo May, presenting his skateboard heavyweight. That is a new leap into the void, but with a great risk. No, Yves Klein is jumping into a safe net, but maybe Polo Mate is jumping, and if he falls, he will crack into the concrete. And some of that kind of references what I'm looking for. Sometimes Thrasher Magazine is the best reference to the urban design. No, I love this image because there is how the skateboarding is shaping right now our cities. No, how Twaishan Jones is breaking the system, breaking the subway, and trying to make a difference between how we appreciate the city and how the skateboarding is taking a look at the space, at the urban space in the city. So one of the main issues that we work is with the body. No, I think that the architecture starts not just with the words. No, Manuel Gallego, and a Spanish architect, said that the architecture starts in our mouth when we pronounce it and when we talk about it. But also for me, the architecture starts with the body. No, when we make an installation like these ones in El Salvador, our bodies became a wall, became a detour, became a frame, became a sign. But also we are questioning about what is informality. No, if the informality in the city are us blocking the access to the storefront, or are those wooden structures that are making this conversation between the street, the sidewalk, and the same storefront? And when we made that kind of iterations, maybe we are not interested in the perfect image. No, the most of our projects, we don't take professional photos. No, the photos are taken by us, by some friends that are in photography, because we are interested more in the footprint, in the body print that let us take some other decisions when we do this kind of interventions. Like the left one, no, that it's a dream place for. It's a dream place for a kind of person that is taking the space, and the right one with this structure that's are in the city that we can make another use for them. And so that kind of reference, no, took us to establish this framework about a dream. This is the architect's dream from Thomas Cole that he paints for Ethel Town in 1840. No, they are sharing a common dream between Thomas Cole and Ethel Town. Obviously, Thomas Cole is representing Ethel Town sleeping, but also she's representing the architecture in the moment, the Greek, the Roman architecture, the Egyptian architecture, the Gothic architecture. And there are some references behind that paint that I'm interested in describe, because you can see there is no sun. The sun is trapped in the Gothic church. No, Ra, the goddess of the sun god of the Egyptian culture, is trapped in the church, in the Gothic church, and it starts with the medieval age, the Dark Ages. No, and we can see a lot of stuff that is in different scale to the people. No, and that's the reference between architecture and communities, people. No, both Thomas Cole and Ethel Town are building a model that is out of proportions. And so Thomas Cole, what he paints is an Ethel Town sleeping and dreaming. Ethel Town is dreaming about this Greek, this Roman, this Egyptian, this Gothic architecture. And also he's ashamed of what he's dreaming, because he's dreaming a model that is out of scale. He's dreaming under these books, no, the books, the reference book of the architecture. And also there are some other authors that talk about dreamings, no, like Madelon Wiesenbrock with all these series of flagrant delict. that the question goes around between, do the buildings dream and what kind of dreams they are taking of. And if we try to develop the idea of the dreaming with the architecture, also Denise Scott-Brown and Robert Venturi did it. No, this is a reinterpretation of the Thomas Cole and the ETL Town dream, but now with different signs, different symbols, different systems, and we can see all that reference. Both Robert Venturi and Denise Scott-Brown are dreaming in the books and in their own books, the books that they wrote, like Learning from Las Vegas. And those are the reference right now to the city from 1970 to 2024. No, we can see the big donut drive-in, the Tail of a Pop hot dog stand, the McDonald's, the first McDonald's that is right now at the museum, the Stardust Casino, and the Shell, no, that are shaping the symbolism and the signs in the city. So we took those elements and tried to do an reinterpretation of that that knowledge. No, we are taking one step beyond to try to make a, I don't know, like a recommendation for a reinterpretation of the monument of Robert Venturi, Denise Scott-Brown, Steve Eisener, no? And that's how we take those elements of that painting, of that dreams, and took it to another level. But also the dream became a nightmare. No, this is the nightmare that we're living right now in Mexico with all these kind of housing projects that administrations do from the 2000 to 2008. And how do we mix that nightmare, that dream, that reference between what we are doing, what we are thinking about social housing, and how we took those elements of the reference and go to and take another step trying to understand what's going on between that, no? And one of those elements for me are the Happy Meals, no? This a special relationship between what's going on inside the Happy Meal, not just for the meal, not just for the cooking system, not just for the drive-in and all the inventions that became with the McDonald's entrepreneur, but also with what's inside the box that are some kind of toys, no? So when we unfold that box, we can just start questioning what's about the housing plan for future generations, no? What are we doing about with the young people that want to live in their own house? So that take us to two different kind of levels of work. The first one is the tables. We assume that the table is like a territory, and this is one of the projects that we did to try to make a relationship between the food and the city that is called gastroarquitectura. That is a table that assume as a territory, and we try to shape it and try to make a meal between 4 different characters. There is the cook, the chef, the architect, and the consumer, and they try to establish a conversation of what's happening between those relationships between the architecture, the food, and the city. No, so we understand the territory as a table that we can shape in and make some work between that. No, and for that we make a series of drawings that took us to a different level to try to understand that we are designing just tools. We are shaping in different ways the architecture, and we are taking some decisions behind the process that took us to design some tools and take the tools of the from the cooking system, no, and try to make what's the relationship between the process designs of an architect and the process designs from a chef. And that lead us to another kind of project, no, that there is the table, there is the territory, there is the tools. Let's make a game board for social housing, for existing low-income housing, that talk about the efficiency energy and the renewable energy, where we can establish a conversation between different actors in the process of the social housing. So we developed some tools that are for specific issues, no? Financial issues, technical issues, social issues, communicating issues with some components of the territory of Mexico, the difference between the climate, what's the relationship between the climate change, how are the relationship between the process of the construction. Remember that in Mexico, we love to construct, we love to make some things, we love to build. And there is a process that we take with all the actors that take the decisions, and we took to the people in the right way to make this process of energy in their own houses. So for us, tables and territory are the same. No, this is a slab that we designed for the Alejandro Garcia's high school, and the main purpose of the slab is to cover a basketball court. But for us, we try to make the relationship between the natural environment. So when you go up to that concrete slab, you can see the mountains, you can see the couple of volcanoes that I present you before. And in the other side, you can see the urban development of the city. So this is an open classroom for the students. This is a garden, this is a grandstand, this is an observatory where you can see the stars, you can see the sun, you can see the natural context, you can see how the cities grow, and you can establish the relationship between those things, no? That bipolar relation between the urban context and the natural environment. The concrete slab is just a repetition, it's an offset of the territory. If you can see in the sections, the territory is in one side and trying to do something like a root architecture, no? How can we make something that is growing up from the site? And underneath there is a basketball court, but the main purpose of this is to go up and have a visual effect between the city and the natural environment. And also there is some kind of signal system that we try to translate it to the community. No, this is how do you pronounce observatory in Nahuatl, no, and how the space change between how we pronounce it. No, that's some of the main reasons that we are doing that kind of things, and that's one of the reasons why we write and why we try to understand the words and the reference with the architecture and the representation. Some other projects that lead us in that kind of context, contexts that are growing up, are consolidating, are making this urban process. This is the historic center and the major plaza of San Andrés Cholula, with some work on bricks, where we try to understand architecture as a background. Maybe the most important, it's not the object, it's right now not the space, it's the appropriation of the people, the community, how are they making this for their celebrities, how they took the space for a dance reunion, a community, no? Something that happens like you see in the right image in Christmas. That is the power of architecture that function as a background for the people, and they took the decisions on how to use it. This is a shelter for a hospital. No, the people doesn't have the place to go through the nights waiting for the patient, no, and they take a sleep under the pedestrian beach, and we are trying to connect that necessity to the people and establish the relationship between always the natural environment. No, if you see the construction is trying to reproduce the tree trunk the colors, the materials. There are two kinds of bricks, no? The sand brick and the brown brick. They are mimic the tree trunk, and trying to provide this shade or this protection to the people that are waiting for their patients in the hospital. So some of the things that we do is it's about that, no? It's about trying to connect the nature with the urban context. This one is a huge complex between a library, an auditorium, and sport facilities. That we are also trying to trap the sun with this process of construction. When I saw that image of the process, I was thinking that we are doing the same that Thomas Cole was trying to do with Detail Town, no? And when he represents the sun trapped in the Gothic church, maybe we are trying to do that the same, but also we are trying to connect the people and the vision with the cosmic conception, trying to make some handcrafted mountains, no? In this place, you can also see the volcanoes. You can also see the mountains. That's our main reference in the cities, no? Because Mexico is a country that have that kind of opportunities, no? And maybe that's what we do, no? In the skate park, you can see the ashes of the volcano. So when we design some skate park, is trying to make some infrastructure, not just an hydric infrastructure, but also how can you catch the ashes from the volcano? And maybe we are trying to do this kind of things, no? This is Cholula is known because there is one church for every day of the year. So there are not 365 churches in Cholula, but almost they are approaching like 2,050 churches in the city, and every church had this kind of space, no? And maybe we are trying to do that with our work, trying to think about different kind of spaces, not religious spaces, not spaces focused on God, but maybe spaces focused on the community, a cultural space that bring us together in that kind of places, no? All these projects are projects that are from maybe you can hear about the urban equipment program from other league prizes, no? Right now there are no private work. We are all the architects firms are working in that program because for the political moment in the country is what we can do right now. But there is an opportunity to do that kind of things because these are 5 projects that are connected to each other. So the federal government build, no, with certain funds, they give us the opportunity to build these projects, and the local municipalities they need to connect the projects to start to making to build the city, no? That it's something that is right to do in that moment in these kind of communities. Another place that took us all this kind of thing is about the touch. How can we make accessible the city to the kids? And this is one project that we do that it's called communicating structures, that it's made by this ring structures that we make the connection between them and try to make an interaction with the body, with the play, with the communities, maybe not just with the young communities, try to test the body of the urban sport and try to make the connection between what is play and what are we doing with those kind of interventions. These structures let us to communicate between elderly people and young people, kids and their parents, no? And they're making a transmission of knowledge between where did they play and how did they play right now. No, so these kind of structures are in a dumpster. There is the playground cemetery. No, every municipality, every borough in the city has this kind of dumpster. So we went to that cemetery and took off the pieces and tried to make a difference between of what they consider as trash and what we consider as a jewel, no, a playground jewel. And we made that connections between different projects, no, the Hoops Jungle and this one that is called the Alameda Play Club, that took these plastic tubes and tried to structure it and make a relationship between the play and the water, no, in a place that is called the Alameda. The Alameda is the first public park in the city, and this is another dream. This is the dream of Diego Rivera, that is called the dream of a Sunday afternoon at the Alameda. There are 4 layers in the dream. Just remember, Mexico City is built by layers, no? We have the lake layer underneath. We have the pre-Hispanic layer, we have the colonial layer, we have the modern layer, the actual layer, we have the pollution layer, no? So what Diego Rivera does is to try to construct this painting by layers. The first layer, that it's in the bottom of the picture, the people are dreaming, no? They are taking a snap. They are the people that can enter to the Alameda because they are poor. The second layer is the rich people, are the politicians, and Diego Rivera is telling us the story of Mexico City, in specific of the Alameda. The third layer is the history of the public space, and the fourth layer is maybe the history of the architecture in the city. No, so when you came to Mexico City, please visit this place. No, it's a museum that is called the Diego Rivera's mural. No, is behind the Solidarity Plaza, that is one of the plazas where we commemorate the 1985 earthquake. And that dream took us to a difficult issue, that is the corruption. No, what are you seeing is Diego Rivera. Diego Rivera is representing in 2 occasions in the painting. In the center of the painting, with a side of the dead, no, La Catrina, and this is the second representation as a kid eating a bread. And in the top of the painting, there is the corruption system. No, this is one of the main architects in Mexico City. Maybe it's Mario Pani or his aunt, Alberto J. Pani, that was a politician. His rights with the representation of a woman. No, that's something that we try to understand, why all the bad things are represented by a woman. No. In the other side, he has some bills, no, that talk about the corruption, and in the upper side there is the architecture. No, so these kind of places, this kind of reference, it's what they are shaping us as an architects, the background and what we are talking about. And also that representation took us to another place, that is what we are doing about the representation of the human scale, no? Not just the classical representation, the Da Vinci, the modular, but also how are we taking the next step to do that representation in our projects. And that leads us to the purpose of our exhibition, our digital exhibition, that is the architect's new dream, no? The reference between all the dreams that I present. And we are trying to present some next steps to the future generations, no? The kids in schools that are trying to they are going to study something, and we try to make her understandable to the city. No, make the relationship between architecture and natural environment, urban context. So in that kind of line, we design other tools, no, that are some reference of what a kid can do in the city, how can we teach them those reference. And we took that urban lifesaver to the streets, no, trying to make the connection with the kids. How can they use it? How can they share it? How can they pronounce the names of the tools? How can they interact? And how can they understand the cities that they are living in? That cities are not designed for kids. Cities are not designed for elderly people. And all of us were kids, and all of us are going to be elderly people. So we need to think about it, no? We need to think about the designs of the city. So this is a part of the process of the project, no? It's a working project that is leading us to take another kind of decisions of what we are doing as a platform of design and architecture. Tomorrow is the Go Skate Day, so we invited you to go out in the city, no, and change the city. We need to talk about other kinds of what we can do in relationship with the city. So take your skateboard, take your board, and go out and celebrate, or just simply go write your message on the pavement or any layer of the city. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Erik. And then I think the next up will be Leah.
My share screen and everything else. Dun, dun, dun. Sorry. First off, can everyone see this? Okay.
We can see it.
Okay, thanks. So hi everyone. I hope you're doing great. I'm sorry in advance for not properly cleaning up my desktop. It's a massive honor to be here speaking with you all and sharing what I'm up to. And I wanted to just note and take time and say what a pleasure it's been to be involved with the prize, especially with my bud Strat Hoffman. And it's been wonderful to work with the Architectural League team. Thank you to Anne, Zoe, Anne, and I just want to say thank you to Maggie, um, who just gave kind of the most incredible and really generous introduction. So thank you, everyone. So I'm trained as an architect, but I make video games that are overtly physical, material, and spatial. My work basically involves sets, props, playful collaboration, and more so the purposeful misuse of state-of-the-art spatial technologies to push out of the screen and out of the headset and into physical space. And I view these sets and props as spatial prototypes for technological realities, say beyond isolation, beyond disembodiment, beyond something that is flat, without feeling, without fun, and without funk. And I just showed this so we can do a little bit of table setting, to be honest, for folks that aren't kind of in it. But my practice and teaching is predominantly directed towards experiments in mixed reality. And with this, I attempt to address and bridge current vast gaps existing between design methodologies used in physical and digital space. And so you could say the world is increasingly mixed and trans, and truth be told, it always has been. But while an architect's process and procedures are equally mixed, you still have common architectural products, which are blank models on a podium and CG renders on a wall. So I would say my practice and teaching basically aims to address this multifaceted discrepancy outright. But first off, what is mixed reality? Mixed reality basically describes a spectrum between physical and digital, which opens up new territory for design and experience. But if you look at this diagram, it also reveals how our current tools are actually limited and conventional if we use them as we're told. So on the left, all the way to the left, you have augmented reality, which is basically a digital layer on top of our physical world. All the way to the right, you have virtual reality, where you're kind of completely immersed in a digital world. And you can see there's so much territory in between that basically we're not, if we're using our tools as we're told, we're not kind of getting at. So basically, a mixed reality approach starts by dispelling the notion that the physical and digital are separate. And rather than a binary opposition between physical and virtual, we can acknowledge that they exist on a spectrum, actually. And then mixed reality work actually exists within the spectrum and not at the endpoint. So you could say, if we create projects that don't purely exist on either end, but then fall within the spectrum of mixed reality, then a space that we design never exists as solely physical or solely virtual. If we have and that's just true. It's a fact. And if we have a physical space, it's coupled with digital objects. And on the other side, if you have a digital space, you also have physical objects. So this is kind of really pointed to try to understand how we can work in this space. And I would say better yet, once you understand this framework, you can actually remove the one-dimensional spectrum of it completely, which is what I prefer. So I'm just going to start by showing a few recent works minus a few other recent works, which I would say just check out on the Art League's website and on the Instagram takeover, which was today. And a few years back, I started referring to myself as a carrier bag architect. I don't know, that was like 2019 or something. But you'll see that I started calling myself, it's from Ursula K. Le Guin's Carrier Bag Theory of Fiction. But you'll see that I am into work that is always in progress and process oriented. And that means I'm interested literally in prototypes over projects, open source over proprietary ways of working. And I would just say that's because I'm far less interested in me or my ego at the center of work, and much more invested in anyone being able to engage the work and apply that learning to carry the work forward through their own means and insights. So I'm into doing and learning together, and I also teach, so that's part of it. So this is a project that I did in 2019, and I just kind of show it because it kind of encapsulates somehow a little bit of, and there's other projects that also encapsulate that came in like 2017 and 2018, but I think this is pretty clear. But it encapsulates so much of how my work and teaching have unfolded. It's a project called X-Rocks One. And here it was just a question where typically you have custom games, custom video games, but you'll typically always have a generic controller that plays across all those games, which assumes so much about the person holding it in it as the generic user. And of course that relates to architecture, but in this scenario, with Xrox One, I was interested in basically putting forward um, a question to that, where rather with a custom game, you have a custom controller along with it. That's really also inspired originally by people on YouTube with disabilities that often mod their controllers just to be able to play common video games on the market. So this was, yeah, oh, I won't go so far into the weeds of it. And then this is from 2021, which is a project that I did with Studio Alana Schlenker in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania for the Carnegie Mellon School of Architecture. Um, and Alana Schlenker is a really kind of wonderful graphic designer, and I love collaborating with her on this project. But we made a print publication. I designed custom projection screens, a custom game, which brought you through the work of the studios that had happened over kind of that year of COVID, as well as made custom controllers, and they all kind of work together. So that's just another example. And then I'm just going to show basically two projects that are fairly recent. This is a project called Discordant Whole, but I actually called it myself. I called it and I told my collaborator that it was called BDSM, which stand for Beautiful Day, Sunny Morning. But basically, my good friend, colleague, and fellow at Talman, Adam Miller, who's here. So shout out to Adam Miller and all the folks he brought through. Thanks for being here. But we were invited by the head of research and creative practice, Kathy Velikov, at UMich, or University of Michigan's Talman College, to submit a proposal for a permanent but removable and reconfigurable and exhibition infrastructure for what is known as a Liberty Research Annex, and that's in Ann Arbor, Michigan. And then this was a project that was debuted for a faculty show in March 2022. I'll just say, I mean, for folks that know Adam, but one of Adam's things, of course, like me, is also designing and making inflatables, particularly for John Waters' probably most wholesome punk music festival, known as the Mosswood Meltdown, which takes place in Oakland, California each summer. And basically, because of the short timeline for the project, I told Adam that we only could submit a proposal if the main exhibition infrastructure were inflatables, because it just would kind of perform and take up space and allow us to work kind of pretty nimbly. So we designed and fabricated a deconstructed bounce house. And we leveraged the industrial Velcro that you typically see on bounce house construction to affix drawings, monitors for video and surfaces for projection. And then you can see here more details of the show. But we then designed a bouncy display for showing books and videos on iPads. And the top pieces that you're seeing, the white, were made using styrene plastic vacuum forming. So it's kind of like a two-part mold that then meets at center. And then we used, because we were at University of Michigan, we made use of basically robotically bent steel rods to achieve a variety of like 5 differently angled bases. And after which a vacuum suction hose and fabric were then stretched over, and you can see kind of in those 2 images, especially the bottom right, was stretched over to achieve, I would say, some very sexy and very queer details. So we got some wonderful images of people in the exhibition and bouncing about. And that was the best because this was I was like, the kids are always the best critics, but this is Jorge, who is a son of a faculty member at the University of Michigan. And it was wonderful because it was his birthday that day, and he specifically came and asked if he could just come and bounce in our work. And so that was just the ultimate compliment for me. Okay, and then I'll just show this project that Maggie mentioned. The project's entitled Free Dirt, which was for my fellowship show at Taubman College at the University of Michigan. So this, when was this? My God, 2022. But basically, Free Dirt is a very mixed presence, mixed reality installation, and the project utilizes invasive plant species. And those are weeds that I downloaded, and I'll explain more. Downloaded from Quixel Bridge, which is a software, and I also found in local Michigan forests, as well as interactive robotics, fallen tree branches, and 7 cubic yards, which is a lot, of free dirt from Craigslist Free. And that was all combined together to create a massively interactive game and garden where architecture origins myths are replayed, made, and destroyed. And I would say this entire project, you can see at the bottom, and major effort. We did this all in the span of like 7 months, which is, if you see the project, it's enormous. But it wouldn't have been possible without these amazing people who made up the Free Dirt team, which is myself, Spencer, Jake, Zeman, and Jiao Bao, who I think a few of these folks are here. So lucky to have them. And here you're seeing an early prototype of Reader, which I showed. It's kind of a standalone VR piece, but you could um, basically, if you see the tree branch keyboard, you can rate my setup. But basically, you could go and use a Twitch chat to chat an early kind of prototype for the final piece. But it was a standalone VR piece that I experienced in the gallery. And in the show, the Buenos Aires Architecture Biennale was showing alongside London Mixed Reality Architecture Practices, Space Popular. Thanks for being here, Frederick and Lara, and Excessive Aesthetics. And I found it kind of amazing because when I showed up um, in Buenos Aires, uh, they basically asked me for the translation and how we should translate the title of the piece. So it translated in a few words. Of course, the piece is called Free Dirt. But the question was, well, is it trash? Is it liberated? Is it earth? Is it dirt? How do we start this? Is it like literally free? Like it doesn't cost anything. So I love this so much. And it also then pertained to like how even in the final work when we were setting up the exhibition, it was kind of this fantastic thing where it was in the springtime, so even people around town were sending me pictures of free dirt signs in front of people's lawns. And I was like, just go there and you'll get to the exhibition, which is basically, the back and front yards of anyone's home. So I love this too. And I don't want to get so deep into this, but this was kind of like just some of the initial kind of thoughts and inspirations that led to the project, where we often view and discuss nature, especially in architecture, as something that's stable and stabilized by, we call the techne of architecture, by technology in general. So let's see, the bottom right, you have the primitive hut. Okay, yes. But yeah, popularized in the mid 1700s, theorized by Laguerre, basically providing an allegory for man and nature, need for shelter, kind of in his essay, an essay on architecture. And that formed, at least for Western architecture, the underlying structure and approach to architecture and its practice, especially in relation to Greek and classical architecture. I love even more. The Italian architecture group Archizoom in the early 1970s. This is from their No Stop City, which was basically a continuous monument and continuous interior made possible by the technologies of the day. Those technologies were room scale computers. And you can see these promotional shots at center from the Italian computer company Olivetti, which then you say, if you look at some of the details of the ArchiZoom drawings, they were basically taking, they were friends with them, one of the designers at Olivetti, but they basically applied a lot of the aesthetics directly to the aesthetics of their No Stop City project, which I think is like very under discussed. But you'll understand as soon as you look up kind of these famous images again and start comparing together. Um, and then bottom is the lightweight render pipeline from Unity, which is basically a universal render pipeline, which is a and now it's been, yeah, eclipsed by the universal render pipeline, but it's a pre-built scriptable render pipeline made by Unity. And URP provides basically workflows that let you quickly and easily create like optimized graphics across a range of platforms, for your phone or for your computer. And this kind of is the first architecture and first construction site that you see when you open up this render pipeline. And it's kind of meant to show the rendering and processing capabilities of the render pipeline. So all that. And I also just say within that discussion, I would say it's important to note that in earlier higher resolution simulations that allow us to even become aware of climate change and understand its effects, those simulations locally actually ended up warming the climate, and the server running those in the local climate where the server was running the simulations. So if we're thinking about kind of like with planetary scale computing, especially with real-time rendering, tracking, and sensing, we kind of enter into this amazing, ridiculous state which we aren't getting out of anytime soon, continuous recursion between the computer, the technological environment, and the natural environment. And of course, architecture is a big part of that. But I would say there's kind of no inside or no outside to any of this. And so the continuous interior, put forward, say, by this continuous monument of Archizoom is pretty much always an exterior already. So how might we already know, as we might already know, nature itself is a technology, and technology is from nature. And so for me, that was kind of the base platform for starting the Free Dirt project, where I precisely like began making a VR room setup using fallen tree branches and imagining that vines would grow up those tree branches and weeds growing up and through them would basically end up, and you can see on the left where that's kind of the tracking system within a room scale VR setup, but vines would grow up and basically disrupt the entire mixed reality tracking system. So that kind of led me to, we might talk about the origin stories and practices of architecture as tethered to notions of maybe stability and relationship and reflective of the natural world. But I think in present day, the project locates itself within our world that is ever more capturable, ever more realistically rendered. And that's all amidst what we're seeing as total ecological collapse. So the Free Dirt project develops a layered physical digital multiverse from weeds, where I kind of put ecology and technology into communion. And it's kind of an unruly and self-fragilizing system because it kind of works against itself as it works with itself. And just a little bit more background. Those digital weeds that were used in the project are coming from Pixel Bridge, and that's a company now owned by Unreal Engine, which creates easily portable game assets that are optimized to be game ready. And Quixel's aim is basically to create, and this is insane, is to create a digital library of everything in the natural world such that it can be easily portable into a game engine. So this is just a drop down in Unreal where you can immediately, in Unreal is kind of many people's chosen video game engines. I typically use Unity, but you can see this is the drop down in Unreal where you can immediately port in entire existing ecologies. So this just shows some of the range, and this is kind of Quixel Bridge. And as we can see here, the architecture section of Quixel is actually particularly normative, beyond the fact that like, look, there's a castle, ruins, rubble, modular saloon interior. So modular saloon interior, but this just shows the range, like shrublands. I mean, you can see it, but beyond the fact that like I can say have a castle, and then you type in another keyword because you see the keyword search bar at the top. You type in one new keyword and you can go from a building or from a castle, and then you can go from that immediately now reduced to rubbles and ruins. So these are just some of the most popular games in Quixel Bridge, in which Quixel Bridge 3D scans are used. So let's see, that's Death Stranding. We could talk about these games endlessly and what they mean. But Fortnite, wildly popular, Elden Ring on the bottom, and then I think almost most telling of all, Death Stranding 2 in relationship kind of to this overall. But it's important to note that, like for instance, in the game Red Dead Redemption 2, it's an open world, I would say Manifest Destiny game. But there are ecologies in that game that are playable in a form that no longer exist in the physical world because of climate change and because of ecological change. So I would say our fabricated concept and reality of nature is incredibly fragile, as are we. So this is the Rookin figure seen from behind, like literally translates as figure seen from behind from Caspar David Friedrich. And that's kind of the third person player in video games. So what we considered natural was always a construction, always a value judgment. And this is a concept of nature as a given and something that is stable. So I'm just showing how we easily port these 3D assets into Unity game engine, which is the engine that we use for the project and I took to use generally. So weeds, and as you can see in the search bar, I put in 3D plants and then typed weeds, and these are all invasive species. And let's just say, was obsessed, and we can go back. But yeah, so I mean, they relate to different biomes. I was obsessed by like how beautiful they were, and these are all 3D scans of actual weeds. But then again, like how you can like these are like kind of placeless, right? So like they might be aquatic, they might be a crop, they might be a flowering plant, but they're stripped of all the information of where they come from and even why they're invasive to those spaces and what that story is. Um, but these are the for the piece, I collected invasive species local to Michigan, so both in forests and yards, and then digitally through Quixel Bridge, as you can see here. And I might, hopefully you can hear all this, and I might up as we can. So using these digital and maybe I lower, because it's not necessarily. Using these digital and physical weeds, we developed an entire planting arrangement for the piece. And while those weeds were immediately present in the interactive game, the seeds were only actually starting to germinate in the physical installation that you see here. And a major component, and just keep it low, even though it's nice to have nature sounds in the back. But a major component of the mixed reality and mixed presence installation was developing working methods to engage in person and remote participants simultaneously. So the piece is entirely interactive between both physically and digitally, both in person and remote. And I used basically VR spatial tracking, robotics, as well as recontextualized, as you can see here, the Twitch chat as basically a command line develop these like very immersive mixed reality interactions. And you can see here, this is me and Spencer, kind of the early prototyping session of the Twitch chat commands and interactions in the upper right. I just go, and these are, I'm gonna up this. You can see it better. But you might have caught the command exclamation seed, and that drops a digital seed light orb in the game and drops a physical seed bomb in the physical installation space. Each of these seeds basically has a lifespan as if it were an actually growing plant. And once someone in the Twitch chat basically spawned the seed in the game, then it immediately starts this growth cycle. And this allows for basically the seed interaction to almost have like a sense of like intimacy and memory, and allows one participant to send another a seed, or in the VR game, a source of light across physical and digital space and time. Uh, so I particularly like with interactions like this was interested in not only like what you see typically, which is like often completely and perfectly like synchronous relationships between physical and digital. But I was also interested in like things that were potentially asynchronous and potentially like meaningfully discordant between mixed reality experiences and interactions. Oh, one's gone. But you can see here some people interacting with and picking up the seeds in the game. And this is from the installation in Buenos Aires. And allows them to basically, hopefully you can hear, allows them to view the world in low level light at conditions and at night. All right, Um, and we then we in this gallery, basically the 24-day night cycle is set to 15 minutes, and that's kind of also a common mechanic in games where typical 24-hour cycles last maybe anywhere from 10 minutes to 2 hours. Let's see if we go for it. I always do it slow. But again, here are some of the mixed reality interactions with the custom robot we built. And that robot is equipped with a live camera, VR trackers, which you see at the top, a variable light that you can change the brightness of, a seed bomb dispenser. Sorry for the background noise. And the entire robot can be moved and variable via the Twitch chat. So the physical and digital camera views on the robot also allow for kind of a different scale orientation and non-human point of view. Uh, and when played in the gallery, that kind of 24 yeah, day night cycle is again set to about 15 minutes. So it becomes almost like a different way of experiencing and tuning into time again.
Leah, I'm so enraptured and so sorry to do this, but we are running
Yep,
close towards the end of time, so just want to be sensitive to that. Maybe we
yep,
can.
yep. Almost done.
Okay, cool.
Thanks, Maggie. And here are just some more in-progress shots and videos. Also showcasing a monitor which is tracked in VR, so that it functions as a portal to see into the digital game while kind of matching positions and views in the digital game and in the physical installation. Yeah, we'll go forward. Some more shots of that view matching and alignment that is possible through kind of that interactive monitor and kind of literal portal between worlds. Some more pictures of the installation and various mixed reality interactions within it. And then I might just show, there's just some videos and then we'll finish up. And here are all those interactions at play in the space of the installation. So the Twitch chat, the VR, and mixed reality experience, moving and tracked monitor and robot. And then here you can also see me in the lower left, kind of in between VR and using my cell phone to track commands and to Twitch to navigate the robot and change camera views. Okay, I'll move fast here. Let's see. With slow internet. And then here you can see again, me in between right there, moving the robot. And you can see that what's going on is you can kind of switch, of course, between the camera views, but here the digital and physical installations are kind of matched exactly. And so that robot is literally navigating both simultaneously. Let's see if this will go. Camera. Um, and just here's some of the in-person VR points of use. Using the seeds to kind of see in low-level light conditions as they spawn in. Okay, so I want to say thanks. And then I just want to give a very brief shout out to, you should check out the Young Architects Project, which is a playable, gameable, deformable, inflatable, and interactive deconstructed bounce house that I did in collaboration with the amazing 5-year-old Jen Meisenberg. So thank you all. And I'll stop my share.
Great. Thank you so much, Leah. I'm sorry to interrupt at the end.
No, you're good. You're good.
So I just want to remind folks, if they have any questions, to please enter them into the chat, and I will field the questions to our two panelists. But maybe I'll start off with a kind of obvious or simple question. And because there's a lot of overlap actually in the exhibitions or installations of both Leah and Erik, and for maybe each of you to reflect a bit on, the theme dirty, which was the basis of your submissions and why we're here today, but also how that maybe links to a theme around children and games and playfulness and the kind of performative aspect of centering children within your work. And maybe you could reflect on that a bit as it relates to this, how you've each interpreted the theme dirty.
Erik, you want me to hop in on that?
No, you go first, Leah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, you kind of nailed it, Maggie, with my work previously, and that's also pertaining to my teaching about kind of this question of productive contamination. So good. But also, which I think relates for me to technology, to architecture, the way we think of use, reuse. And yeah, I think that combines also kind of with what you brought up of the serious playfulness. And literally for my submission, it's called Free Dirt. And in my submission to the dirty, um, for the league prize competition, I basically said I'm into the dirtiest dirt, which is, as I kind of came to know, dirt that's been free dirt on Craigslist is literally dirt that's been contaminated by stray seeds or chemicals, which pertains to so much for me in general. But I mean, I I think each of my projects tackles dirty as a theme in different ways, whether it's kind of thinking and unlearning as much as learning in the context of education and in the context of my own work. And so I say there's such a willingness to be messy and mess things up and be nimble about things. And I will say that coming out of architecture school when I was an undergrad, I came out of it. There's a few ways that I started my practice, but um, I came out of it being like, I don't want to have to stand in front of a room and kind of course, you're practicing, you're making hypothetical architecture in practice of making real architecture, quote unquote. But I just got annoyed with the performance of it. And I said I had friends and big inspiration for me is puppetry. And I just knew that I was like, if I can have a child go up to my work and understand it, then that's the goal for me. So that became a benchmark. There's so much more to say on that. And the collaboration with Jin, is part of that. I literally believe that part of and there's different. I think it's very different in Mexico too. So I think it's a very kind of United States and Canadian context and different Western contexts where we think of architecture as mostly, like building as it then you go and get trained in academia. And for me, I was actually talking to Erik about this recently. I believe that architecture should be taught in primary school. I think we need a young architects program and project that's literally for young people. So that's part of the ethos of the project. And I taught youth programs for a while, and that was with high schoolers in Los Angeles, the design immersion days at SciArc. And I am really inspired by John Berger's ways of seeing. And we would take the students to the Underground Museum, which is no longer, but was an incredible space. And um, it was just incredible to see them engaging art, and how free you see that in Waves of Seeing as well, but how free and how poignant their perspectives are. And I was like, why aren't we doing that within the spaces that we're all quote unquote mutually invested in? We should be. So that was a big starting point for me in the project. Yeah.
No, I think it's the way that we conceive architecture, no? From the school, when we consider that architecture is the build by itself, but maybe there is something behind of that building. There is a mental process, a theoretical process. There is some background about theoretical things. And maybe it's that kind of dirt between the design and the building. In our case, doing that kind of stuff is write a text, write an article, made an installation, an intervention, makes a different design. When I was in the university, all my professors told me that I wasn't doing architecture, that I must leave the school and go to study graphic design. No, so
Well,
that marked me, and that makes me think that architecture is a more complex definition, since you pronounce it until you made it real. And I grew up with some old reference that right now is some kind of dirty to quote them. No, architecture is the learned game. Okay, it's and the correct and magnificent and the use of the lights and the forms. Let's just say that architecture is a game, period. No, that's all. But it's a professional game, no? And I think that what we are doing, what Leah are doing, it's a professional game that has to do with that background that we have in our education, no, the school, and maybe it's the reference between the use of these playful tools, and I'm agree with Leah. We need to take the Young Architects project that that she's doing to the primary school and talk about other things, no? Because they are the next generation of architects. They are shaping the cities, that are shaping our world. And if we don't consider that when you have, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years, we are just gonna have the cities that we are living, no? Maybe we can live in that kind of cities anymore.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate the notion of architecture as a professional game. And I think that something that was really struck me in the work that you presented, and this kind of, Leah, you mentioned kind of trying to shatter the ego and move away from authorship and being in favor of open source and prototype versus the project, right? The idea of the encapsulated project. And Erik, you referred to taking photos, iPhone photos, your own photos, not really having this kind of polished, curated set of images of your projects or in the built work. I wonder if you could also think about or reflect on how sort of decentering these ways of knowing architecture or practicing architecture, traditional ways of knowing and practicing architecture, has invited alternative possibilities or forms of representation that you found yourself surprised by, like ways that you're documenting things or representing things that you find to be more productive for this version of design practice that is kind of decentering authorship and decentering the single kind of curated image? I'm super fascinated by how that has evolved in both of your work. So maybe you could, that would maybe be the last question, since there are no questions in the chat. We'll leave it at that, and then I know we're sensitive to time.
Yeah. Mm.
Leah,
Or you feel like taking that one
it's-
first? Okay, you want me to go first? Again. So you're
No.
saying with like traditional methods, right, Maggie?
I was saying like that we're so used to seeing these curated images of the project. What is your project? And I think that what's so
Yeah.
fascinating about both of your work is that you're already starting to develop different forms of representation and documentation of the work, that I think is really pushing against traditional methods of perceiving and communicating architecture.
Yeah. I mean, uh, everything that I document is shown through, because it's also two questions. Cool. There's two questions in chat. I see. Yay. But you know, it's also a question of how you show mixed reality or mixed media, and that comes a lot of times in like how do you even show some architectural work, right? That we found like when originally putting together our portfolios, I know students deal with this all the time. How do I show certain things and certain aspects between digital and physical? So it became a little bit of a way of starting to string together just that narrative for me and showing process, um and not feeling like and I felt like eventually like the process was almost more interesting, and the outcomes of a lot of the projects are just points in the process that then become encapsulated. you know and I mean we both spent I mean I did undergrad in architecture, and spending and I saw also in grad school, I did a post grad for a year, um people spending way too long on certain things. And so, of course it's an ethos process for me, and but I would say, to what ends, who is this supposed to bring in and for what? So I live and die by the screenshot a lot of times. Of course, I work in game engines, and those screenshots I probably like mess with a little bit and combine in Photoshop for not that long at all. Um, but yeah, just like I of course grew and love certain architectural drawings, but it's also like, I'm like the currency of today and how you want to communicate. I think it's a way I work with game engines, and these are literally real-time simulations where otherwise you'd have to simulate frame by frame by frame. Headaches. No. So I will, yeah, I am into basically immediately getting someone into a space, into an experience, and having that be the communication versus look at my architectural drawings on a wall and expert architect, you can know what's going on, right? You can fill in the whole blank. Again, I want anyone to come up and start to understand what my design intention is and what the experience is.
No, I think as an architect, we have a big power in our hands, no? Not just the power of economical issues or social issues. We have the power of communicating the things that we are doing. So the way that we represent, it's have to reach to another kind of communities, another kind of people, because we are talking with each other, no, just only in the between architects, and what we do is try to open that space to talk with all the people, no, it doesn't matter if it's a politician, it's a corrupt politician, something murky, something dirty. We need to talk with all the people because they are all involved in the projects, no. At the end, I always said that when I was, I don't know, 2 or 3 years, I was drawing, I was playing with some tools. Right now, I'm doing the same thing, no?
Yeah.
I'm drawing, I'm playing with some tools, doing models. And in my last days of my life, I'm still will do that, no? I'm gonna die with a pencil in my hand or with a model in my hand or shaping some forms. and my drawings are not so pretty, no? My drawings are a 5-year-old. It's more when I see the Young Architects project, I saw the drawings of what's the name of
Jan, so good. Yeah.
yeah, but they are saying something, no? They are trying to
Yeah.
communicate some things, no? So that's the way we work, no? Trying to do different stuff, try to communicate some things that there are no tangible, no? Sometimes, no? Ideas, you can touch ideas, you can touch your dreams, you can touch some things, no? And we try to make the transition between that and what we are representing in a virtual reality, in the reality, no? So I love architectural photographs, no? They are great photographs, but for me, I love to go and take my own photos because I can see that a body is twisting in the space, that a kid used the concrete slab like a slide, no, and that give me a lot of information just to take the next step in my work and try to understand that you can enter in a space in a window. We don't need any more doors, no? Maybe we can almost change the perception of the space, the perception of what is a door, what is a window, what is a ceiling, what is a floor, no? What is a surface? And maybe we can try to understand that while we are drawing, working, making some that we call that as architectural design.
Okay, so Anne has allowed me to go 5 to 10 minutes over, so I'm going to totally exploit that opportunity and ask one final question from our audience. Adam Miller asks both of you, who are you? This maybe is a quick one, a quick answer from each of you, but who are you inspired by lately?
That's
Yeah, you
that's
go.
a complicated question.
So
I don't know.
much.
I have some inspirations about music. No, right now I'm listening music from reggaeton. No, I like to know what's happening behind that scene of the music, how it's shaping the space in the cities. No, how the youth are taking their own spaces. But there are different references, not just in music. I have an obsession with the skateboarding because I think the skateboarding shapes our city. So every time I saw Twice Jones, a photograph of Twice Jones doing a trick, that's inspiring me. No, maybe my reference are not from architects. Maybe my reference are more from the streets. No, when you go to a park and you see a bunch of kids playing and inventing some things, that's where I took my inspiration.
That's awesome. I also want to note that Erik, there's many more overlaps than I even realized. My entry into architecture school, my essay was about skateboarding. Um, and of course, I teach and work with trash all the time. So there's a lot to it. And playgrounds, I'm really inspired by playgrounds. That's my like number one commission that I want. Um, and so I'm inspired by Jen, reading her writings about space and about the variability of space. I've been finding really meaningful. Um, so good. I mean, recent stuff. I mean, the Paul Pfeiffer show at Mocha Geffen in LA is wild. Everyone should check that out. I'm always reading Paul Preciado. That, especially an apartment on Uranus, gives so much. And I'm inspired by friends and mentors, all alike, and my lover, who does incredible work. So, yeah, thank you all.
That's a lovely note to end on. So thank you both so much for such a wonderful set of presentations and discussion. I'll let Anne take it from here.
Thank you all, and thank you, Maggie. We were all struck this year that so many portfolios, especially each of yours, had this simultaneous layering of images where there was so much excitement and so much information that you wanted to convey that it was hard to fit it all on a page, which I think we saw in each of your presentations today too. Please join us again next week for the last set of presentations. And please, please, please go to the online exhibit where you can really see and kind of play with the potential for even more play with each of these installations to understand all of these influences and how they come together can be reconfigured in lots of different ways. So thank you everyone for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Everyone.